Wow, that's embarrassing. Hungry, are you? If you could eat anything right now, what would it be?
I guess I'd like a slice of pizza. No, peanut butter jelly sandwich, blueberry muffin, a burrito, chocolate malt balls.
Do you know what all those things have in common? They're all made from cereal grains.
Cereal sounds good. I changed my mind. I want a bowl of cereal.
No, not cereal. Cereal grains. Cereal grains is a term used to describe any type of grain grown for food like corn, rice, oats, and rye. And don't forget wheat and barley. Wheat and barley are grown all over Montana.
But why are they called cereal grains?
The word cereal comes from Ceres, the Roman goddess of agriculture. But humans were growing cereal grains long before the start of the Roman Empire.
Okay, I get it. But I still want some cereal. Whoa!
Sit back and let me tell you a story about where cereal grains come from. Sometime around 10,000 years ago, in the Fertile Crescent, what we now call the Middle East, people were hunters and gatherers. They would go out into the world and collect the food they needed. Back then, wheat and barley grew wild, and in the Fertile Crescent, both were plentiful. Gradually, more and more of these hunter-gatherers settled down and built communities. The communities got bigger and bigger, and there were too many mouths to feed. Out of this need, a hero stepped forward, and the very first farmer was born. He cared for the wild wheat and barley, watering it, carefully breeding the strongest plants, and collecting the seeds to plant the following year. Under his watchful eye began the domestication or growing of plants for humans to eat. Having farmers and a reliable source of food allowed people to stay in one place for long periods of time. And so cities were born.
So you're saying we have farmers to thank for civilization?
I sure am. Farmers work hard to give the rest of us a reliable and high-quality source of food. And as a Montanan, you should be proud. Montana produces on average 150 million bushels of wheat a year. A bushel is 60 pounds of wheat, which can make 90 loaves of whole wheat bread.
That's a lot of wheat.
Sure is. Did you know Montana exports 80% of its wheat overseas? It's our biggest export, and it's worth nearly $1 billion every year. You might say that Montana helps to feed the world, but that's not all. Montana also grows and sells 5 of the 6 classes of wheat: hard red winter, hard red spring, hard white, soft white, and durum.
So there are different types of wheat.
There sure are. There are over 30,000 varieties of wheat, and each one is unique. Here is how we classify different wheats. Is it spring or winter wheat? Is it hard or soft wheat? And finally, is it red or white wheat?
So what's the difference between a spring and winter wheat?
That's an easy one. Spring wheat is planted in the spring. Winter wheat is...
Planted in the winter?
Nope, you would think so. It's actually planted in the fall. Sprouts for a short time and stops growing when it gets too cold. Then it picks right back up and starts growing again in the spring.
Well, what about the other types?
Okay, let's look at hard wheat versus soft wheat. Hard wheat has more protein than soft wheat.
Wait, I thought protein was in meat.
It sure is, but protein can actually be found in a lot of different foods: eggs, milk, nuts, and grains like wheat and barley. Protein is an essential part of any diet because it helps build up muscles, fight infection, and heal wounds. Hard wheats have a lot of something called gluten, which is a combination of proteins that help make dough stretchy. The stretchiness helps capture carbon dioxide during the baking process and makes hard wheats especially good for bread and rolls. On the other hand, dough made from soft wheat isn't as stretchy and won't rise as much as hard wheat. Bakers prefer soft wheat when making cookies and cakes. After all, you don't need cookies to rise 3 inches. Finally, there's durum, the very hardest of the wheats, and it's perfect for pasta noodles. Did you know there are over 600 different shapes of pasta?
Hey, that's a lot of dough.
But you know, Montana doesn't just produce world-class wheat. We're also one of the largest producers of barley. Montana produces almost 45 million bushels of barley a year. Why don't we see what Colin Waters, Executive Vice President of the Montana Wheat and Barley Committee, has to say on the subject?
Primarily, the barley that's grown in Montana is used in the brewing industry. But different malt products are made from it. So what makes like a malted milkshake, what makes that sweet is malt from barley. There's other barleys that are used to feed animals, and there's other barleys that are used in human food products too.
Here, have a malt ball.
Wow, that's a whopper!
Isn't it amazing that we can turn this into all this?
Yeah, but how do they do it?
Another great question. Let's ask Montana farmer Guy Kohlberg.
Hi, my name is Guy Kohlberg, and this is my daughter Savannah. I'm a 4th generation wheat farmer here in Glendive, Montana in Dawson County. I guess I grew up by my dad's side, walking the fields with him and riding in the tractor, and started farming, working the fields myself when I was about 11 years old, and planted my first crop when I was 18. And still 30 years later, I'm learning more about it every year. This here is the flag leaf on a wheat plant. It's basically the solar panel to the plant. This is a head of wheat. This is where the kernel is developed. And here's one kernel of wheat, and that will be a hard kernel when it's developed. And this is what the wheat looks like when we combine it. And then it is shipped to market and then trained, usually out to the West Coast. This particular field here, is probably around 3 weeks to a month off from harvest. When our combines come into a field, they have a big header on the front of them. That feeds the wheat into the combine. The head of the plant, which holds the wheat, then goes through sieves in the combine, which thrash it out. And it'll actually separate the kernel, and it will put it into a separate holding compartment in the combine. And then when the combine gets full, it'll dump into a grain cart or a grain truck, which will then haul it to our grain storage on the farm.
But a plant is a lot different than a plate of spaghetti.
A very astute observation. But the process of turning wheat plants into all these foods is actually very simple. Once the kernel or berry of the wheat is removed from the plant, it's sent to a mill. At the mill, the berry can be separated into its 3 parts: the bran, the germ, and the endosperm. Whole wheat products are made from all 3 parts, while white products are made only from the endosperm. From there, a mill takes the parts of the wheat berry and crushes them into the fine powder you know as
Flour!
Exactly. And from the flour, you can make all those foods you want to eat. Your breakfast cereal, the bread on your sandwich, or the cake you have for dessert. So now you've seen the whole process from start to finish. Have you learned a lot about the food you're eating?
I sure did. I never thought that there would be so much that goes into growing and harvesting wheat and barley, and right here in Montana.
That's right. It's hard work growing all the food we eat, but luckily the Montana farmer is on the job.